Alright, in this video tutorial we're going to take a look at drawing a realistic nose using colored pencils. I'm going to be using Prismacolor colored pencils here. In a previous video I talked about what a great product this is, and if you don't have Prismacolor pencils, I suggest you definitely get them because they are definitely in a class of their own. The method that I'm using here is my own method. I'm sure other people use this method. A lot of people suggest that when you're using colored pencils, to go in and color in the area, kind of the local color to begin with, and then work from there. I kind of tend to work from the opposite direction. I start with a darker kind of underpainting is what I would call it. Basically what I'm doing is I'm using a photo reference of a nose here, and I'm drawing just the darker values that I see here. So I'm looking at the photo reference, and then I'm adding the shaded areas with a dark brown pencil. Nowhere in this video will I be using a black pencil. Black is okay in some situations, but most of the time it's best to stay away from the black. Black is such a strong color that it can tend to overwhelm the colors around it. So I tend to use blue and brown for my darker values. Since we're doing skin tone here, I'm using a dark brown to begin with. And I started with the nostrils, just drew basically 4 lines, one for the right nostril, one for the left nostril, which kind of came underneath the first nostril, and then 2 lines for the edges of the nose, the outside portions of the nostril. Then once I've got my darker underpainting down, I'm going to start with a dark red. This is a Caucasian skin tone that I'm doing here. But basically, for all skin tones, if you follow a little rule, red, yellow, brown, and white, that's how you make your skin tone right. You can't really go wrong. So that combination of colors will work for really any skin tone. So in this video, I'm going to try to stay away from using the skin tone that's maybe manufactured and comes in the pencil. Instead, I'm going to try to mix those skin tones, which makes this a little bit more difficult, but in the end it makes it worth it. So I've used brown, I've used a little bit of the darker red, and now I'm using kind of a cream color, which is basically just yellow and white. So if you don't have this color, you can mix it with yellow and white. And I'm burnishing some of the values that I've already put down. And what burnishing means is I'm basically taking the cream color pencil and I'm going over the top of what I've already put down, and what's happening is all 3 of those colors are kind of mixing together, and in the process I'm building up kind of a milky or creamy surface, which is important when you're using colored pencils. We want to build up the layers of colored pencils much like a painter would when they're creating a painting. You know, when you're doing a painting like an oil painting, you might put layers and layers of paint on the surface, and some of those layers may be a little bit translucent, and when they're translucent, that technique is called glazing. And basically when you're burnishing the surface, you're providing for a surface to create those kind of glazing effects. Now as I was talking, you notice that I put down a little bit of pink here and there. Pink, again, is just red and white, so it's not necessarily a new color we're introducing, but rather a value of red. So we're sticking with red, yellow, brown, and white. Here again, I'm going back over the brown, over the burnished areas, just to create that contrast. Now, during this drawing, that's the process that I'm going to take. I'm going to put down a little bit of color. I'm going to burnish it with either cream or white or another color, and then I'm going to put down more of that color or maybe a different color, and just create those layers. It's very important to create those layers. Now, a few things I want to point out as I'm going around with red and some of the other colors is that when you have a nose juts out from the face, so it's very important here to create the correct value, and value is the darkness or lightness of a color. Lighter values are going to indicate something that protrudes, and darker values are going to indicate something that recedes. You can see this in extreme in the nostrils. The nostrils recede way back, so that's the darkest area on our nose. The top portion of the nose, or the bridge of the nose, protrudes out, so this is going to be the lighter value. And you notice as I'm putting the colors on the surface and the values on the surface that I'm keeping that bridge of the nose pretty light. Right now I'm going over it with some white burnishing areas here and there. It's very important that we create a highlight on the bridge of the nose to make sure that it looks like it sticks out. So if you're drawing on white paper, just keep that in mind. Another thing that I'll point out here is even though I am working on white paper, I am coloring with the colored pencil on the white. You want to have all of your areas finished. You don't want to have any of the paper showing through necessarily, or in fact in this drawing I don't want that. Alright, again, I've been putting down layers of colors, burnishing them, and then going back with some more of the colors. I think this is like my 4th or 5th application of the brown, and by doing this I'm just building up the colors and making them look a little bit more realistic. Here again, I'm going to go back with a little bit of red and put a little bit of a pattern on the nose. Everybody's got little pores on their nose. On some people's nose, it's a little bit more noticeable. And in my photo reference, there are some noticeable pores on this dude's nose. So I'm going to make sure that I have some of that pattern, some of that texture in the nose. And what's so great about the colored pencils is we can put some of that pattern down and then burnish it with the white, and it almost fades into the texture of the skin tone. One thing you should consider when you're completing a colored pencil drawing is that colored pencils are a medium that is time consuming. It takes a while to complete a really strong colored pencil drawing. In fact, this tutorial is sped up because this drawing took me an hour to complete, which in the scheme of things is not really a very long period of time for a colored pencil drawing. It's not unusual for a colored pencil drawing to take 10 to 20 hours, even for an 8.5 by 11 size drawing, so a smaller size drawing. So when you're doing a colored pencil drawing, make sure you go into it with the understanding that it is going to take a while. It's going to take a lot of layers to build up to get that realistic quality that you might look for. And you can see here I'm adding more layers and burnishing over the top with the white as I go along. Now you might notice that I'm switching back and forth between pencils. That's because I'm looking at my photo reference and I'm picking out a color, and then I'm finding that color with my pencil, and then I'm adding it to the drawing, and then I'm burnishing it in with the white. So that's how you should go about doing your drawing. Go back and forth between your photo reference or a person that you might be drawing from life, and find the color that you need, put it into your drawing, burnish it in. Now I am giving a little bit of indication of what happens at the top of the nose, not too much, just a little bit, because that's important in the overall look and realism in the nose as well. Add a few more areas of the skin pores and then burnish them in with white. And just to accentuate them a little bit further, I'll use the brown to add some more of those pores around the end of the nose. Be careful with the yellow. Yellow is very strong. It does need to be included in your drawing, but just use it sparingly. Alright, now to really bring home the skin tone, I've got red, yellow, and brown, a little bit of pink here and there. Now I'm using a sienna color, which is similar to a skin tone, but it's really a brown, kind of a muted brown color. And I'm just going over what I've already got down with that sienna, and that's going to really bring my skin tone together and make it look a little bit more realistic. I'm choosing to add the sienna towards the last stages of developing the skin tone because I really want to make sure that I develop those red, yellows, and blues underneath that sienna to really make the skin tone look realistic and have that contrast that's important. You know, a lot of people will just start drawing a face and use the skin tone that comes right out of the box and wonder why there's no definition or form there. And that's because they've got to really build up those layers of different colors. Define the bridge of the nose just a bit further with some brown. And then I'm going to burnish it a little bit with the sienna. Again, the darker you make around the edges of the nose, the more the nose will look like it protrudes. The less contrast in the values, the less the nose will protrude. Alright, now it's time for my secret weapon, which is a blue pencil, and it might seem weird that I'm pulling out a blue pencil, and I'm pulling it out here at the end because the blue and the brown are going to mix to give us a more natural black. So it's going to increase the contrast and make the nose stick out a little bit further. In fact, it's going to make the skin tone actually look a little bit more natural. A lot of shadows actually have blue hue in them, so by adding a little bit of blue here, we're actually making our skin tone more realistic. Now if you get too heavy with the blue, don't worry about it. Just go back over it with your dark brown and it will turn into a more natural black. I'll burnish a little bit of the blue with some dark brown to make it look a little bit more natural. So that pretty much brings us to the end of this video tutorial. Just remember, colored pencil drawings take time. Make sure that you're patient and you take your time with your drawing. Also remember that you really need to layer colors to get that realistic effect. In red, yellow, brown, and white, that's how you make your skin tone right. This has been another video tutorial brought to you by thevirtualinstructor.com.